All right. Well, welcome to ShopBot Tools online web training. Try to do these every couple weeks, and these are all going to be topic driven off your comments. So you can always shoot me an email with suggestions that you have, and I've got a Google doc that's just full of all these ideas. And this is the second one now. We're actually going to use a webcam on our desktop so we can actually do from a design to cut, so see the full project. So as I progress with my technology filming skills here, we'll get into doing some other stuff, maybe get a couple cameras going, some different angles, and bring it in that way. So for anybody new here, I'm just going to bring up the control panels for you to see real quick. So all of you guys should be able to see this. There's an attendee list that lists all the people that are here. But most importantly, what I want you to see down here is where it's going to say chat. And here is where you can chat and you can type messages. And you can type me any questions that you have, and I'll try to get to them through, as I'm doing the training. So as far as your audio, you've all been muted as far as that. There's just too much static going on in the background. So if you need to ask me a question or make a comment or a suggestion, or heck, tell me when I did something wrong, just put it down in the little chat window, and I'll get to you as I can. And then again, as we always do at the end of all our sessions, is we'll open it up and have just an open free-for-all for questions and stuff. So, so today's topic was going to be on designing and cutting a state-shaped cutting board is what we're trying to get with this. And this would be something from, we'll take a file and we'll give it a toolpath customization, and then we'll hold it to the machine, and then we'll actually go ahead and cut the part out. So if you look right on the top, the forum, here's where I post all of our stuff for upcoming trainings. And you can also go to our webpage, go down here to training, and here's where you can sign up to get on our mailing list, and you'll hear all the different training things that we have coming up. And then as far as all these videos that we're shooting, they're all archived here underneath web classes. So you can go in there and see some from before or rewatch them. And again, please share with me any suggestions that you have. So, all right, with that little introduction, then we'll go ahead and get started here. So, just to show you where this is a project that already does exist out there, and just for any of you that don't know, we have several projects that are already available for the end user. And if you go on our main page, and you go on the right-hand side down here, it says Ready to Go Projects. And go in here to the Ready to Go, there's about 50 projects in here listed for you to cut, anywhere from a desktop size up to a full-size machine. I mean, we're talking up to 4x8 size sheets of plywood. So these are ones, a lot of these have been designed by Michael Tyler. He does a lot of great stuff with some 3D. And then I've done several of these here where they are more furniture type based projects. So furniture and trebuchet, there's a smokehouse. But as you go down, you'll find the one we're going to get to today. And versus explaining all of these, I'll explain it with the one we're going to use. So the one that we're going to use today is right here. It's the state-shaped cutting boards. And you can kind of read up on these. There's a little bit of an overview. Talks about what materials are being used. Talks about what size material, the bit size, and then as well as what kind of finishing. So that's for all of these projects. So they all have that. And right here is a PDF, and each one of these will have a downloadable PDF. Now for this one here, it's pretty simple. It's just pretty much a profile cut, but some of the other projects that need assembly and a whole assembly that has to go along with them, that it would all be explained in the download. So for this one, again, just gives you an overview of what this files you're about to download, and this was just the PDF. And there's also the zip files here, which has all of the cut files. It'll have the hold down files if they're included, and usually a DXF or something in case you're using an older version of the software. So notice when you're using these, though, confirm the bit. Not only that it's a 1/4 inch, but go in and look at the actual tool path. Is it an up spiral or a down spiral? Is it a compression bit? Always read the entire project before cutting, and notice where this file is zeroed. This file is zeroed to the table surface. Zero your bit to the table surface. So some guys do zeroing to the top of the material. So for this one here, you'd want to check the actual file, do a part verification. Where is that file zeroed? So you zero it in the same spot. Otherwise, you're going to break a bit or dig down into your spoil board way too far, or not cut all the way through. So and it just kind of follows along here. You can just follow along with the instructions. So as you hold down, cutting, removing tabs, sanding, finishing, and that's for each one of those projects. So this is the file that we'll actually be using. Is you click here to download the zipped files. I'll download all of these. And then when you open them up, you'll see that you have all 50 states. There's a Michigan one in there, there's a North Carolina one in there, and then there's a USA one. So each of them has a drawing file and a cut file. So like I said, if you're going to download one of these, I would definitely go in and just check out the file, make sure it's going to fit on your machine, double check where the zero is, check the feeds and speeds. Is your machine able to handle that? So for this one here, let's just start out with all 50 states cutting boards. So I click on that, it'll bring up Part Works. And so notice what this is. It's just a generic file. It says select the state of your choice, bring it into the work area, stretch it to the size, and then give it a tool path. So this one here is just there was a profile already set. So whichever state you grab, you'll just select the profile, put it on the material on that part, and be done with it. But we'll go a little bit further with that today. We'll actually take one of these states and add a little personalization to it. So I've been seeing a lot lately on like Etsy and some of these other like craft web pages where there's a lot of people doing cutting boards that are in the shape of the states. And obviously you've got some states that are have a little bit neater of a design for making it into a cutting board. I would really feel bad for like Rhode Island. They wouldn't be able to get much on their cutting board to cut out. But so it's a pretty popular thing right now, and I think it has been for a little bit. And I just think about trying to cut this with the detail of a scroll saw or bandsaw versus how we're able to come in with our ShopBot and do that. So like I said, notice this one is a generic file. If you look up here, you can always go up and check the job dimensions. And up here, set job dimensions, I noticed that this is a 24 by 18 material, 3/4 inches thick, and zero to the top. And the reason it's 24 by 18 is so it'll fit on our smallest unit, which is our desktop. And these can obviously get scaled bigger. And what we'll be doing with today's example is the board that I have is not 24 by 18. So we'll actually go in and modify this. Just kind of get in the habit too. You download these original files. They have a specific name. When you go in and start modifying that, make sure you resave it with the name of your, so you know which one has been modified, and then you don't go, you're like, oh, I wish I had the original because I've altered this so much, or, you save over the original, or you accidentally select any one of the other ones. So, so make sure you always give it a good name. And just to show you one more thing, and we'll get into the project, is goes right along with naming. I got a thing here that says TJ's Projects. I go into TJ's Projects, and here they are. They're all labeled, alphabetical order. They're just given a name. I know exactly what it is. Trebuchet. I go in, boom, there's Trebuchet. Here's sheet 1, toolpath. Sheet 1, hold down. Sheet 2, hold down. Sheet 2, toolpath. So I know there's 2 sheets for that. Here's the drawing file. Sheet 1, sheet 2. So I got the cutting file, the drawing file, and then any pictures and stuff that I have, I've got them all in there too. So a nice organized document list of all your files is something you want to start early, because as you start growing and getting 50 or 60 projects, and you got to have that one project that one day, and you're going and searching for it, it can be a pain trying to search for it. So it's really nice to be able to have to have a library that's easily accessible. So, all right, and remember, you got any questions, please feel free to ask. So that was the cutting board one, and we can go over any of these other ones at the end if you'd like. So, okay, so notice that we are going to see my webcam today, and for you guys, there's also a thing where you'll see where webcam is here, and you'll see where I had shared my webcam, and you can bring yours up to do it. And check too, right here in this corner where there's a split screen. Sometimes the screen will get split. So, this is a webcam, and we're looking at just our basic our ShopBot desktop. So our ShopBot desktop this is our smaller unit. This is our our desktop unit. We sell a lot of these to engravers, sign makers, schools have been buying these up crazy. It's a it's a nice little footprint and a real precise, heavy-duty machine. And I also will be using, and this is something new, after I plug this, is we've got a new help us out to see the version 3.8.2. It's available on our website for free, stay current, and that is it's always nice to stay with the latest and greatest. And what this feature has on this software is you're able to go into a thing called easy mode. So easy mode is something new to ShopBot. So when I've switched to easy mode, our big ShopBot console is gone. We don't see what we're normally seeing. Sound's gone. All right, hang on. How's that? Is that any better? All right. Let's see if I can turn it up a little bit. Sorry, there's background noise. Let me try to turn this up. Is that better? Testing? How about that? Is that better? All right, sorry. I'm in a shared room, and it's lunchtime, so everybody's at lunch. Okay, so in ShopBot Easy, we still see the inputs and the outputs, but now we've got some things over here where they're just some quick buttons. So there's setting up, click to jog home. This will just you do a quick jog home, which obviously the machine's already home. I can also do my X and my Y zeroing, and then bring up keypad. And one of the new things in keypad is you can have memorized locations. So you see when I have one here, which is simply just finding a spot that you want, you right-click, save that spot, and then hit OK. So right now, if I hover over 2, you'll see that one says TJ Special Spot. So if I click on that, the machine will go to my special spot, which is 2418, because that's the spot where it's moved completely out of the way. So just keep that in mind. ShopBot Easy, and the keypad's a little bit different. A couple new things right in here. You can always click on the question mark, go back into full mode, and you can still bring up the keypad with the K command. You can still do your JH, jog at home, do all that kind of stuff. So, but no, just so you know, the easy mode's out there, and it's nice to have the current software and going on different It's not always, on the outside end where you see it. Sometimes it's so. We'll do is load up the file, modify the file to the board, resave it, recalculate the toolpath, and then cut it. So we'll add a couple other things, a couple things to this one too. So first things first, let's get rid of, we don't need the ShopBot console up. Right now, I'm actually going to just bring up the keypad real quick, and instead of going jog 2, 24, 18, I can just hit K and then hit 2, and it brings up my memorized location. So I'm going to move the gantry out of the way so we can get some measurements off this. Oh, now, can you hear me now? Sorry, I just switched to a different mic. Like I said, it's really loud in here, so that mic is not going to work. All right, we good? All right. All right, sorry about that. All right, so let's go back and we'll actually open up our cutting board file. And this one here is in all 50 states cutting boards. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that and bring it up. So first things first, I know my board is not 18 by 24. I'm actually going to have to go measure that physical board and get the specs off that board. So to do that one, so to do just these outside measurements, these we can simply just bring in a tape measure and measure how far it is in the X, which is 15 inches, and how far in the Y, which is 12 inches. So for me, I know I can go and change that to a 12 by 15, and that would be my new material size, but we still have to recheck the Z thickness. So let me open up my Partworks file, and again here, we just said we need to make sure we're picking the X. When we're doing that too, we need to take into account where we're mounting this. Is our board going to be mounted in this position, or is it going to be mounted in this position? So that's where it's important to know on your machine, if you have a desktop, a buddy, or a gantry, where your actual X position is. So most of the machines, the gantries, it's always your longest is your X. Your desktop here, it's along your front, and then on your gantry or on your buddy, it moves back and forth. So I noticed I got a little bit of a crack here in my board. I just noticed that. So when we pick a state, we'll see if we can schedule around that, and if not, what we'll have to do is I'll go get a different blank. So, all right, so if I set this here, we just said our X is 15 and our Y is 12. So X would be 15 inches, and then our Y is 12 inches. But the other thing we don't know yet is the exact thickness. So for doing thicknesses, I like to actually get a set of digital calipers. And these are just from Lowe's. They're $20. There's nothing fancy about them. They're just enough that I can take and turn them on, get it zeroed, re-zero it, and then run the calipers along the edge and measure how thick this is. So, and it's going to have a little bit of play in there. That material is going to be a little bit thicker. So, especially if you're plywoods and stuff, the thing transits back and forth, back and forth. So, find the thickest spot is what I like to do. Is find the thickest spot on it, and then that's going to be my measurement. So, this one was actually came out to be 0.76. So I'm just going to change that. So, this is nice to have this thickness right here, because there's nothing more upsetting than when you go and you try to cut your board out and you go to cut through and it just left like an onion skin. It didn't go all the way through, and then you're stuck with this board that's not cut all the way through, and then you got to redo the depth of the cut, and especially if you've already pulled it off the machine, now you've got to get it back on and get it lined back up, which again is hard to do. So all I've done now is change my X, my Y, and my Z material size. So it's going to say, hey, you do need to change. If you're changing these, you're going to have to recalculate all the tool paths. So to do that, just mental note right now, anything over here that was a tool path is going to have to be changed, because whichever one it was drawn with before isn't even there still. So you can see it's still highlighted from the state of North Carolina for that bigger blank. So that would simply be me bringing in my new part and bringing it to where you'd want it to be, grabbing this, hitting this, and hitting recalculate. So, but again, we got to get into redesigning it and drawing that one. So, I find the thickest part, Mike, because if you're zeroing to the machine bed, that way you just got it covered. And when it's the thickest spot, you know your machine to the bed. You know you're not going to cut too deep that way, and you know you're going to get all the way through. So that's where I grab the thickest spot with the calipers. All right. So notice too, I've got these lines on here. Where do these little dotted lines come from? Remember, these are drawing lines. They're layout lines. They come from over here where the calendar is. You can just come over here and grab off these rulers and bring in as many as you want if you're going to use them. If you don't want them, you can drag them off one by one. Or if you don't need any of them, right here in the corner of the two rulers, you just click that and they both go away. So just a nice little thing. I like them because I know where I can put like a half-inch mark. That way I know to stay out of that area, because I want to have my part fit inside that. Some people don't ever even use these. It's all personal preference. Again, that's the beauty of this stuff. One guy does it one way, another guy does it another way. There's no right or wrong. It's just however you whatever your preference is to do. So. All right, excuse me. So we're good. We've got our material now drawn, spec'd out to the size of our physical board that's laying on the ShopBot. That's the key to any project, is this board that you're about to use, that board has to be the same size as your cutting board. Let me close a couple of these other ones out. So as we're now going to go in and start, we've already went in and started altering this. If I hit save, it's just going to resave over that basic all 50. I don't want that. So I'm going to go in and go save as, and here's all the other ones that are already in there. And we'll just call this the training cutting cutting board. So then it's a just nice name, reference name, and I preserved the original file, and now I have this newly saved file. So, all right. Anybody got any requests for states they want to see today? We'll pick out a neat one that'll fit on our blank. Oh, I'm getting private messages here. People offering me money for their state. No, that's not what I'm talking about. All right, who's our highest roller here? Good deal. All right, we got a lot of North Carolina fans in the audience so far. That one's winning. That's the thing. You can go cut your own, right? No, North Carolina is actually it's a good one to do. So instead of just grabbing it and bringing it up here, instead of just bringing it up here, I'm actually going to do a copy and a paste, and let's just see what it looks like on this blank, because this might be too long of a skinny state to make it fit. I might be worth doing more of a square state, but I just would bring it in like this, and grab a corner and bring it up. So right now I'm kind of curious how tall this would be. I know it's approximately 6 inches tall, and it is approximately 14 inches long. So it's not a bad size. It's really not. So what we can probably try to do is, we could probably try to fit 2 states in one. So I wonder, could you take this guy and do a copy and a paste, which I'll just do a Control-C, Control-V, and I wonder if I could fit a second one in here. So not quite like that, but what if I did a mirrored copy horizontal? No, so you could probably make that one fit with a little bit of rotating. But again, if we're going to add text to this or something, a mirror isn't going to work because you'll be cutting actually the back. So that's probably not how I'd want to do that one. You could play with the rotating just to get it just right. Also remember, if you're using a board that's glued up, which direction is your grain going? Because you want to make sure that you maximize the grain, the way the grain is, and how you want it to lay out with your actual state. So let's play with the North Carolina one, and we can always modify this one or change this one as we needed to. So things that you're going to have to start taking into account is the level of detail. So with this blank being the size that it is, how do we pick up this detail? Do we need that much detail? Do we actually need it? Does our machine have a cutter that's able to get down in there to do that sort of stuff? So the easiest way to do it is, you just come over here, make a profile. Here's a 1/4 inch bit. Select the 1/4 inch bit and just do a quick calculate and preview it in solid mode. So, and I'm going to go back and do this. I know I just went through quick. I preview in solid mode, and you see where the tool can't go. So I can see where my actual 1/4 inch bit can't get inside. So here's doing that quick and then coming back and showing it to you a little slower. I would go over to toolpath mode and come up with a profile. Maybe this profile isn't even here, so I'll just delete it. And you have to come up with a profile toolpath. So I would profile. I know my material is 0.76, so I'm going to go just a little bit deeper. So I'm actually cutting all the way through the material and down into the spoil board. And I'd go in here and select the bit that I would like to use, and we'll come back and do this when we actually make our final tool path. But I'm just going to just select a 1/4 inch bit right now. I'd like to do it in a 1/4. 1/8 inch I feel it's going to be too small. Take a little longer. I'll have to do more passes with it. And I'll come back in and do tabs and ramping. Right now I'm just doing a preview. So again, no vectors selected. So make sure you select it and then hit calculate. There's that warning message, 0.76, 0.78. We're okay with that, but we've stopped and checked it because we don't want it to say 7.8. So I can preview it right now in 3D, preview all toolpaths, delete the waste, and deletes the waste. So I see my Outer Banks over here, or I'm sorry, the East Coast where the Outer Banks butt up against, but it does look a little bit different. You can do view and split your views, or you can just hit page up or page down, whichever one works best, and split your views. So over here in 2D view, this is where I could say, hey, put solid on for profile 1, and it'll actually show me over here in 2D view where I'm cutting. So it shows me that I can't get all the way in there with a 1/4 inch bit. So I see that in 2D. And I'll come over here and check that out in 3D, and sure enough, it shows I'm not quite getting it in there. Is it making a big difference? For this application, no. It's a cutting board, and unless you live down in that bay and know how deep your actual bay is and get offended we cut off your part of the inlet there, it's really not a big deal. But or what you could do is, if you wanted to get in there, you could try to switch it to a smaller bit, maybe an 1/8 inch bit. Let's just for grins do that. See if an 1/8 inch bit will get down in there any better than that. So 1/8 inch straight. I hit OK. I'm not worried about any of the parameters right now. I'm just for grins, I want to see what this looks like. So boom, look at that. The 1/8 inch got all the way in there. But what's going on here? It's not quite getting all the way in there, but it's going to do something right there, isn't it? How's that going to look on our preview? It might look a little goofy. So let me go reset, preview all toolpaths. So that's not going to look good, because that just doesn't look right there. So we still got options. So I showed you the option already where we switched bits, made it smaller to get down in there, and maybe we live there. Maybe that's our home right in there, and we know we're connected to the ocean, even though our 3D view doesn't allow us to. And now I'm already down to an 1/8 inch bit. Do I want to go any smaller than this 1/8 inch bit? No, I don't. Maybe you don't have that bit, or it's already going to take way too long. But I gotta have that connect. That's the summer home. We grew up on the ocean right there. It connects to the ocean. So another thing that you could do is you could come back to your main drawing over here, and why not go into node editing? And node editing, which is right here, it's the second arrow, or hitting the N key, N, that brings up some little points here, some little nodes. So what if I went into these nodes and there's that inlet that I'm not quite getting all the way in, and I just maybe changed that just a little. I just opened up that bay a little bit. Now when I come back here, I will need to do a recalculate of all toolpaths, because right now I've just got a saved profile of the first toolpath. So I could either hit recalculate, or I can come in here and hit calculate. It's nice to know this recalculates here, because what if you had like 5 or 6 toolpaths? It would then recalculate them all. So it says OK, they've been recalculated. Now I look down in here, and I guess I can clearly see it's not cutting. It's reset, preview all. I can see it's not cutting. And how could I tell that before it even did that? Well, with the preview on here, remember that a blue signifies that it's the machine cutting. Red a red line signifies the machine traveling up above the material. So I know there's a gap there where it picks up out of the wood and then goes back down and jumps back into the cut. So I didn't make it up big enough. So what I really should have done too while I was moving this inlet around was I could have just used my measuring tool, knowing that I've got an 1/8 of an inch bit. What's that measure? A 0.08. So, you know, I'm really going to have to get that down to about here to make it work. So, you know, and that's perfectly fine. So, you know, if I try grabbing it right now, it's going to alter the whole size. But I go into node editing, you know, just spruce this up just a little bit, you know, unless. So we can try that right there. Again, I'll grab that measuring tool and just check across. There we go. So I've got it. But again, I have to hit recalculate. And now I see that the blue line goes all the way in there. I go here to 2D and 3D view, preview all toolpaths. Boom, now I see my little inlet is in there. So if you really wanted that inlet. Now think about it now. So here's another thing. So we've made it so that inlet is there. But what have we also made? Let me delete this waste material. We kind of got a little lever sticking out right here. So depending on how thick the wood is and how thick this lever is that something that could break off there real easily? If you drop that once on your countertop, would that piece snap right off right there? So again, I'm going to check that because maybe I don't want that inlet in there. I've kind of created the shelf now that looks like it could snap pretty easily. So I'm going to take that measuring tool and measure in here. Right here looks like the weakest point. How thick is that? 0.32. So that's just under 3/8 of an inch. So that's getting, you know, that's getting pretty skinny. I mean, it is 3/4 inch thick. It'd probably be fine. But just, you know, another thing to think about. There's so many things you can get into as far as, you know, how precise you want to get on stuff, and you got to just think about the different angles. You know, you start alternating it to do one thing to fit a tool, and now you might have structurally changed your design. So there's a lot to consider, even on a silly little cutting board like this. And just think of how it gets when you get into big, crazy projects. But it's not as complicated or scary as it does sound. Most of the time you could just bring something over, give it a tool path, and it'll cut out and look decent to 99% of the crowd, but there'll always be that one guy that's going to pick out, oh, hey, look at, you could have done this or you could have done that. So, so yeah, you know, there's going to be states, like some of these down here in Florida out in the Panhandle and stuff. Some of this stuff, you know, you might not even want to use when you get into doing your cutting board. Let's bring Florida over real quick. Get rid of North Carolina. You know, so I stretch out my Florida. So do I bother messing with some of this node stuff, or do I bother just tool pathing it and seeing how it looks out? It's your choice. I showed you both options with the North Carolina board. You know, right now I can play with the measuring tool. How big of a bit is it going to take to get in there? Looks like 1/4 inch won't even get in there. You know, right there, what's going to happen? If you don't know what's going to happen, and, you know, after you ShopBotted for a while and you use the stuff for a while, you're going to say, okay, it's just going to go around. But just remember, you know, you've always got over here where you can do your profile and do a. I like the 2D profile sometimes better than the 3D, because, you know, this 3D, the 3D is going to give me this. And okay, yeah, it looks pretty good, but how close is it to the original shape? So with that, I can highlight this and make sure this blue, the solid color, is on right here. So that solid color, if I zoom in, it shows me, you know, it's the 1/8 inch bit obviously can't get into that tight of an area, and it shows me up here the 1/8 of an inch bit, you know, can't get down there. So it does leave this. What is this? You know, what is the distance from there to there? So you can go simple, you can make it complicated. It's all, all depends on what you're doing with it. Is it what are you doing with it? I guess there's no right or wrong. Anybody got any questions before we proceed? Speak up or forever hold your peace. Surprised no one's asked. Where's Canada, or where's something else? What's it got to be the United States for? Well, that's where we are. So, all right, I'm just gonna do a little bit of house cleaning here. Get rid of my profile, and we're not gonna do Florida. We'll get rid of Florida. So. All right, let me see. On my board here, I did have a little bit of a crack, so make sure we pick a state where we get around that crack. All right, so the guy that offered me the most money was from Ohio, so we will cut his state for him. Now, what I'm going to do here is just do a Control-C, Control-V. So I did a copy and a paste. And so there is our state of Ohio. And our material size is our 15 by 12 that we measured. And we are going to take our Ohio and see how big of Ohio can we make. And Ohio is a big, long state to drive through. Not my favorite. But I can make it big. And I can bring it in like this and make it bigger. So it's nice you can grab these corners. It keeps it proportionate. Versus if you grab the side, you make Ohio lose its shape. So edit undo is Control-Z. Make sure you learn that one. That's a very important tool for a ShopBotter. And maybe I can also change the rotation of this too. If I rotate it a little, looks like I can make it a little bit bigger. So I'm trying to maximize the size of this for the size of my blank. Might as well get the biggest Ohio I can out of this. I also got to remember the grain too. I don't want to rotate it too far that it doesn't line up with the grain. So I'm pretty happy with that. And with this too, I can have it centered in my material. But by looking at my material, I noticed that I've got a crack in it about 4 inches long and about 2.5 inches down. So let's see what we can do to get around that crack with this blank. So this is another real-world example that's going to happen. So here's your blank, and right here I've got a crack that goes in about 4 inches, and it's about 2.5 inches down from the top. So we want to see if we can move out of the way of that in this board. And with this state, we are actually able to do that. And you can also see down in the bottom right corner, it looks like the wood changes color a little bit too. So it'll actually be nice. So I said, this is where these layout lines are nice. So I know I've got a 15-inch minus 4, that's 11. So that crack sticks out that far. Can I take this state and move it over far enough to get out of that crack? Yeah, it looks like I can. So, it's not centered on the board. It's over close to the edge. But being at the edge, it is still able to put a tool, quarter-inch tool, all the way around it, and it'll be safe from the crack over on this side. Yeah, this is a piece of maple that I've got glued up. So I'm going to leave it over on the edge like this. Normally I'd leave it in the center, but just notice, right about here we've got a crack that we want to stay out of. So that's why it's right there. So, um, so a lot of neat things that you can add to cutting boards. If you ever like Google, you know, cutting boards, they've got different. Sometimes they'll have people's names in them. Sometimes they'll have, you know, they'll put the theme of their favorite sports team, like Ohio. They probably put like Buckeyes or the Cleveland Browns or something like that on theirs. And some people make them not even to actually use them as a cutting board, but to actually just use them as like a serving platter. You know, if you made it decorative and you cut it out, you could actually just make it a serving platter. So, so let's add some text to it, and then it's also, I want to see what it's like to add like a juice groove all the way around. So a lot of times people will add like a juice groove. So when they're cutting into their meats and the juices start coming out, they need a place for the juices to run. So and what those are typically called, they're called a blood groove. And just to give you an actual example, I took mine home. I forgot I had cut one. I was going to show you, but I was so excited to use it. It's at home. So I'm sorry, I prefer Google. As much as I love Yahoo over the years, Google's search options, they have it. Cutting board with a blood groove. Okay, so to do that one, let me bring up images. And, you know, I mean, there's just some really neat different cutting boards and stuff. Like here's one here that's got a groove in it. So that's just a really nice ShopBot type groove, because you can do that and we can actually put different levels. See how this one's deeper than this one? So all the blood or all the juice would flow down to one spot. So so grooving is something that, you know, are added to cutting boards for decoration. Let me see, a lot of knife enthusiasm on here too. But that's like your most basic right there. You'll see a deep ball groove all the way around it, and that's just a place for the juices to go. So, and I like adding those too to my cutting boards. They do look nice. So let's see, will that work for the state of Ohio? And the simplest way to do that right now would be, I'm just going to take my Ohio and say I want to groove in like a, I don't know, let's say an inch in all the way around. So I would just take and do an offset of the profile in 1 inch. So let's just do that. And so select the vector you want. Come down here to the offset and say I want to select, and I want it to go inwards, and I want it to go inwards 1 inch. And I am going to have it create sharp offset corners, so it'll match the Ohio as well. So that brings it in pretty far. You know, now we don't have much of a cutting surface in here, so you know that doesn't look quite right. So that's where you could do an edit undo. Maybe we should only have that coming in, you know, 3/4 of an inch. Now, still out there a little ways, yes. I'll even go as much as, say, 1/2 of an inch in. So there's 0.5 in. So that 0.5 looks a little nicer. I know I got a 1/2 inch out here. But now I'm starting to think like, all right, so do I want my blood groove to follow the exact shape of the state? You know, is this going to look right? Before I go on and start spending all this time, you know, designing it and then having it not look right. Now's where I like to switch back and forth doing tool paths. And you can get yourself in trouble with this, because what you'll come over doing, just you're creating a quick tool path of a profile just to see it, and then you got to come, and then you don't get all your tabs and everything in there like you need, and then you forget to come back and do it in the end, and where's my tabs? My part's moving on me. So so let's create a profile on this one, and we'll go all the way through. I want to do it with a 1/4 inch. Go 1/4 inch upcut. I'm going to put this in 3 passes. I want it on the outside, climb. I'll get into tabs and stuff later. We'll just call this profile outer. Calculate my warning. Verify 0.76, 0.78, that's fine, I'm cool with that. Reset, preview all toolpaths, so that looks pretty good. You see the dent didn't go in all the way there, so it's not that tight. I go back into 2D mode. I got to turn the toolpath on and see. So it got close to there. It did pretty good. A 1/4 inch bit. I mean, really got pretty dang close on this state. You know, there's a couple spots where it didn't quite get in, which is fine. It reads well on the 3D, so I would be happy with that. I think that looks fine. Definitely looks like the state of Ohio. So and then next, let's see what the groove would look like. Say we wanted to put a blood groove all the way around on this one. So for this one here, I'd actually come over here to do this, and to do the groove easily, if it's just one depth of a groove, is to do a profile on the line. So doing it on the line, it's going to cut centered on this line. So half the bit will be over here, and half the bit will be over here. And let's just give it a depth of a 1/4 inch. So it's not that deep. And then let's just use like a ball nose to cut this out. I see I have an 1/8 inch ball nose. I was really hoping for a 1/2 inch ball, or a 1/4 inch ball nose, and I don't see one. So I'm just going to go here and create a new bit. We'll add this in here too. So so I'm just going to go new, tool type. It's a ball nose, and you got to now make sure you give it the right name. This would be a ball nose, and I want it to be a 2.5 diameter. And I'm going to go like this and go TJ made, and I actually like to keep that up here too, TJ made ball nose. That way if somebody else comes and uses this computer, they're going to know it was one of mine. So it's up to them if they want to trust my calculations or not. And that's good for you to know too. Do you trust the other guy that's using yours? Is he a crazy aggressive cutter where he snaps bits? You know, maybe you don't want to use his bits and make your own. And I'm just going to go down here and fill this in. And I'm just going off, I've cut enough stuff now to know that I can get this pretty close, just off me typing in a few numbers. So after you've used the chip load calculator and stuff long enough, you'll start knowing what good feed rates are. So inches a second, 3 inch. I'm pretty happy with all that. So I would hit apply, and when I do that, watch, it's going to save a bit over here. Boom, there's TJ made ball nose. And then when I hit OK, now it selects the ball nose for this tool path. So on the line, 1/4 inch deep, profile, groove, 0.25. That way I know how deep it's going. And hit calculate. So I know I have a profile of a groove at 0.25 deep. So let me do preview the visible tool path. And there's that groove right there. So to me it looks really deep. Something looks really deep about it. I don't like the depth, and I'm not a big fan of this little, looks like a Pac-Man mouth. So for me that doesn't work. But that's where it's nice. I previewed it now. I see it. I don't like it. Just my eye appeal. I don't like that. So now I can go physically change that before it's already been cut and it's too late. Then you got to go glue up another blank. So for this one here, I'm going to, first of all, I said I didn't like the depth. So I'm going to come back here and check this depth. 0.25 deep with a 0.25 ball. I really don't need it to go that deep. We'll just make it 1/8 of an inch. And let me hit calculate. But notice I didn't resave the name. Calculate at 0.125. recalculate, reset preview. Because if I don't reset the preview and I run it again, it's still going to look just as deep because I've already previewed it with a deeper groove. I need to preview it now with the shorter groove. So preview visible toolpath just shows me that. I'm confirming. I like the depth of that a lot better. I really do. That looks good. And then I'll just go preview all so I can see the outside. Delete waste material. Okay, so it's looking better. It does look. I can tell it's the state of Ohio. I can tell it has a groove in it all the way around, but I still do not like that one spot. So I will go back to 2D mode, and for this one here, we're probably just going to use the node editing feature. So here I will click on it. Again, you have the arrow here for node editing, or your hotkey is hitting the N. And notice right there is my point that sticks in too far that I didn't like. And why is that point green is another question, versus all these other points are black. So that's the actual start point of that toolpath. So do you want it to start right there? So for me, I probably want it to start down in this corner, because I know when I get done, I change my bit. Usually I'm right here for zeroing. I'd like it to go right here to the closest distance from 0, 0 and start. So at this point here, I could right-click on this and say, hey, make you the start point. So now that's green, and that one's black. So, and then the whole purpose of us coming in here was I didn't like that. So what if I try something like that? I don't know. It might be too close. And if I come over here and I go to preview all toolpaths, how come it looks the same still? So, you know, this is where it's easy to fault the software and fault everything, but sometimes it's us. What I didn't do was recalculate the toolpaths. So recalculate the toolpaths. OK. It says OK. Now you'll see here, here's the old groove, and here's the blue toolpath for the new groove. So I would want to reset my preview, because if I just go preview all toolpaths, there it is showing the new one closer. And that doesn't look good at all. So reset, preview all toolpaths, and there it is. And to me, I like that a lot better. Delete waste material. To me, that looks pretty good right there. So anybody got any questions? Let's just take a 2-minute just take it in break. If you got any questions? It's been an hour we've been talking now. It's nice to stop for just a minute and process. And if you got a question to ask before we move on. So. All right, so just to recap on a couple things. You know, we came in, we set up our new job dimensions to our board. We noticed on our board that it's got a big crack right here. So when we draw our image, we kept it over here to the left side to avoid this crack that's right here on the right. So now Michael asked a good question. Will this wood warp? So I've cut a few of these out now, and yes and no out of these blanks. So for this blank here, you'll notice on your webcam, these are 2.5-inch strips. So they're fairly wide strips. So it all depends on the you know, how the grain was on the wood. You know, is it quarter sawn or half sawn? Which way is that cut to get a tighter or open grain? How big are these glued up widths? You know, is the grains alternated up and down as they're glued up? So there's a lot of factors that could go into making this warp. Because yeah, we are cutting a lot of this board apart and making it into a, you know, obscure shape that it's going to have spots down here. Let me get the 3D. You know, down here where you think about a 2.5-inch strip, and it's just a little bit of that strip right there. That could be a spot where it warps out. So, Yeah, that's something that you could do is have, you could draw your lines in here. I know it's every 2.5 inches. So for that, 2.5, where are we at? 7.5, 8.5. That's where all my glue ups are going to be. So now what it is it's several different pieces glued up. There was just some strips that I had, and I glued them all up and alternated the grains. So it's strips of maple. So you can get into doing that as well. And all right. So anybody else? Any other questions? Why not add something to this, like the you could always add text if you wanted to do like a little V-carve engrave on this. There's so many different things you can do. You can make these pretty slick. You really can. All right. So we'll go ahead and cut this one out like this, and then we'll get another blank and do one with some other text as well. So for this one here, let's go back. First of all, we got to set up some sort of a hold down method. So for me, I'm going to run some screws out here in the corners, and I will do that manually. And let me switch back to my wireless mic here. So hang on one sec. We'll do a sound check. All right, testing, testing. How is the sound now? We have good sound? Anybody? Anybody hear me? All right. I'm going to be moving around, so I want to go to the wireless mic. All right, so before we get too crazy about making these a nice complicated project, I really wanted to show you how easy it is to cut this out, and then we can come in and complicate the project a little. So so here is my camera, and I'll leave that up so you can see the actual ShopBot. And then the first things that we're going to need to do for this is we got to square up our ShopBot. So to do that, I am going to bring up the ShopBot software, starting controls. And most of us are used to doing this with the command console. But remember, you've always got easy mode. Let's show you how to do it in easy mode, since it's a new feature out there. Oops. So I would click right here, and it turns it into easy mode. And for this one here, we got to zero our X, our Y, and our Z. We don't know who used this machine last, so we want to get it zeroed X, Y, and Z. So for this one here, I am just going to click on the button. I'm sorry, click on the XY button. We get our warning sound. Our machine goes over and uses its proximity switches to find its 0, 0 location. So it's recording that location over there in that left corner. It's going to come forward now and do the same thing. All right, so we're good on the X and the Y. Notice here, this bottom left corner is 0, 0. And notice in the drawing here, this bottom left corner is 0, 0. So I've just corresponded these two to make sure they're lined up. So what I need to make sure is on my end now, when I put my board in there, I also put that in at 0, 0. So that part's up to me now. The machine has been connected to the computer, but it has not been, I have not. So what are these holes in the table? So that's a good question. If you'll notice on ours, we've got some holes in the table, and we've got a lip cut all the way around this edge here. So this is a new feature that we're sending out with our Autodesk desktops, where we'll actually cut a rabbet all the way around the edge. Let's see if I can zoom in here to show you. We'll actually cut this rabbet here on the edge, and then that rabbet is lined up right at 0, 0. So then you know anything on the top side of it is going to be within 0, 0. The holes, and you can email me, I can send you these files. The holes are actually cut in the table. The holes are actually cut in the table for a jig fixture. So you'll actually take these dowel holes, put them in place here, and you'll use these dowels to hold these in. So here's a quick hole parts that we will. We're sending these out with all of our Autodesk ones, and they are making them available for everybody else. So what these are is you'll actually take the dowels, put them in the holes, and then this jig goes in here. Now that jig will hold a board, and it lines it up right at 0, 0. So let me grab a board here, and I'll put it in place. So this jig's actually cut for a specific size board. So you notice there, I got the Kool-Aid Man, and I can take this hole here, and then that jig is just a tapered block of wood that I'll take and stick in there, and then the tapered jig will hold it in place. So that holds it tight, and then the same thing here, I slide that one in, and that holds it tight against that dowel. So now that board is held in there tight by the jig. So that's just a new thing that we have. So that's what those holes are for. So today we're not going to use them, but just wanted you to see that. So that is a neat thing. So if you use one blank and you use it quite a bit, that same size blank, this is real nice. It's just a wedge feature. I just push on and push off real quick, and it's easy to load and unload. So, all right. So for us, we need to make sure we orient this to 0, 0. I got to make sure I had that. Remember, we got that crack in that piece of wood. We want to make sure that crack is over here, because we don't want that into our final board. So for us right now, we have zeroed our X and our Y. And right now it's saying that our Z0 height is at 1/2 inch. And I can clearly see that my bit has a good inch or so between the end of the bit and the material surface. So this is the spot where we're going to zero the Z axis. And I'm just using my keypad, and I'm going to move this up. And can you see the lines in the spoil board? You can just barely see these lines through the video. I just got done surfacing this table, so you can see that it's a nice flat table. So that's where I like to zero off when I've got a nice flat table. So right here, I'm going to bring it, and using the ShopBot Easy, I just click on the Z, and it says hit enter when above plate and ready to zero. So the question is, what are the black spots on the table? I think you're talking about these holes right here. They're coming in a little dark. And that's just the bolts that are bolted down through the MDF into the aluminum. And then there is some black spots right there because I got a junk desktop spoil board, one we didn't want to send out to the customer. So we just put it on the training tool because it's just going to get cut up anyways. So, all right, for this guy, put our Z0 plate down. We clip this onto the collet nut and hit OK. It's going to come down and tuck once. And it's going to check again. All right, pop quiz. What would be the step that I should have did right before we zeroed it with the Z plate? What's one check that we should have done? Notice before ever you use Z0, it's always a good idea to come over here when this is clipped in place and tap the end of that metal to the bit. And look at input number 1 over in the red box. Verify that that comes on and off, on and off. That way when you bring that down, you'll actually get it, you'll make sure you know that's going to connect versus trying to pile down. Yeah, so Michael asked a question, so you flattened out the sacrificial piece. So yeah, I did. I ran a zeroing routine, and we can do that again. I thought I did that. I might have done that on, I don't know if it was the last training or it might have been basic, so it wasn't recorded. But every once in a while, this thing's going to get all chewed up, or humidity is going to come in, and it's going to just get this all destroyed. So it's nice to put a nice flat surface on it, and that's just as simple as running the table surfacing routine, and we can do that one later too. So, all right. Chad asked, what size do you use the surface? Well, the desktop actually comes with a 1/2 inch, right here if you can see it. This actually comes with this 1/2 inch end mill. So, you know, that works for the desktop. The bigger tools, they come with this one here. This is an 1¼ inch spoil board cutter. So think about the diameter of that one versus the diameter of that one. The one right here, the big one, it's going to do a lot faster. So I just took this off our big machine in the back, and I use this up here on this machine. It goes quicker. I don't want to sit there and watch the machine flatten out my table. So I put the bigger bit on there, and I go to town. So. All right, so we are zeroed in the X, the Y, and the Z. I'm going to bring my keyboard back up, move my Z up to a safe height that's above my 3/4 inch thick material, and I'm even going to go ahead and move it back out of the way, because now I want to mount my board. So this is, you know, this is me again now. I've zeroed my machine. My machine knows where X, Y, and Z is. I need to verify in my tool path back here, I'm sorry, in my drawing, you know, which way is my X, my Y, my Z? And your X in your drawing is across the bottom, which is nice for a desktop. If you look at the desktop, that is right across this front right here. So that works real nice for you desktop guys. So that's where I set up my computer over on the side of my ShopBot on my full-size machine. It just makes it easier to see what's going on. So, all right, so we're good. We've got it zeroed in the X, the Y, and the Z, and I had a bit in there, actually, that was the right bit, but we'll have to do a bit change for our first tool path. So I'm looking here through my bits, and it looks like I do not have a 1/4 inch ball nose. I have an 1/8 inch ball nose. So why don't we go ahead and change this, and we'll put a V bit in. So this is good. We'll go back and we'll actually do a recalculate with the tool path. So for this one, we don't have that bit. We'll have to now do a switch to tool paths tab. And we want to do profile groove, but now we don't have this 1/4 inch bit. And I should have known I didn't have one because I just made it up. But select bit. Let's just do we'll do a V bit, so it'll give it a nice V groove all the way around. And for that one here, I will do this one is a 90-degree V bit. And I'm just going to check some of the measurements it has. So notice that a V bit is normally used for V carving, and don't let this get into confusion here. When you're V carving, you always want the feed rate and the plunge rate to be the same. That's the way you cut in 3D, and that's the way you V carve. So this is the bit that I want, and I want to change it, but I don't want to change this for the next guy. So I'm just going to hit OK, and I'm going to go up here and edit this for just this file. I'm going to say, hey, I don't want it to plunge that deep, that fast. And just to be safe, I'm going to slow this down to like 2.5 and hit OK. And this is just me preference. This is me trial and error. This is what's happened over the years of me trying different things. So reset, preview all, and there's what it looks like with the V-bit. That looks pretty good, actually. No, I'm happy with that. I like that. So delete waste material. Delete the waste material. There's Ohio. There's a groove around it. And that's looking good. But a couple things that are still missing here. One is, look at the order of our cuts. So right now I have a profile outer. And then after it gets done profiling the outer, it's going to go and do a pocket groove. Well, how can I do an outer profile? Takes all that material out of there, and then you do the profile groove, which is just this little groove in there. So first thing I need to do is switch the order of the tool paths. And to do that, I'm going to go and grab profile groove and just hit the arrow, and that moves that up. And notice too, when I do preview all tool paths, I don't have any tabs or anything holding the spoil board to the scrap. So delete waste material. Notice I've got nothing holding that on there. So I'll use some screws and have my board held to my ShopBot, but how am I going to hold the scrap piece to the good piece? And that's where I can go back into profile outer, and I can do add tabs to toolpath, and go in here to edit tabs. So just to give it a little more notes and acknowledgments on tabs is, in this tab menu here, I was just in profile toolpaths. I clicked add tab, and I want to give it a size. And for 3/4 inch thick, this is pretty good. I'll go a little bit thicker. I'll go 0.24. I'm going to go 0.4 long and 0.24, and I want to have it as a 3D tab. And you're going to see why. It makes it so much easier to nip that tab out of there when you're done. So 0.4, 0.24, and create a 3D tab. Oops, see, I just clicked on it, it went away. So I want that on there, and I want to go edit tabs. All right, so you've got the option of going over here and say, hey, just take and make 4 tabs and add them on there, and it will do that. Or you can say, I don't want them on there, and hit delete, and they go away. Or what you can do is come in here and add the tabs manually by clicking, adds the tab, and take it away, and it adds the tab. So the tabs get added real nicely. So just by checking here, let's go add 4 tabs. So what's wrong with this picture? For me, there's a couple of things. And it's because I don't have any kind of vacuum, and I have used plenty of tabs in the last few years that I said, hey, I'm going to make my tab as easy as I can to make it nip off as far as cutting it off, and I'm going to put it in the most convenient location so I don't have to sand it or try to get a file in there. The machine's supposed to be cutting this nice accurate cut for me. So if I had a tab right there, that's going to be a pain for me to try to get that tab out of there when I'm done. Let me do a quick preview, and I can do a calculate. And here's that tab right down there in that corner. That's going to be a pain in the butt trying to sand that tab out of there. Plus, it's not even doing anything for me. Where this tab here is out on this end, and that's easy for me to just nip that off with a utility knife, hit it with a block of sandpaper, and boom, it's fixed. So the automatic tab adding feature isn't always convenient where it puts the tabs. So a lot of the times I will just go in here and go delete all tabs, and I'll put them in a spot where I think is appropriate. So for me, I'd like to put one right there. Notice I'm staying off the corner a little ways. I'm going to put one right there. I'll probably put one here. It's an outside type edge. And probably one right here. All right. So my tab placements are probably questioning a few people. Like, why wouldn't you put one here on this straight and one here on this straight? Well, I guess here's where I'm getting at with this is if you look at the webcam here, and I know where my Ohio is going to be on here, I don't want a tab out here or out here, because when I go to cut that with the utility knife, I'm now trying to cut across the grain. So that's taking more effort from me and more strength from me. Where if I have a tab right here that lines up with the grain, it's a lot easier to push a knife through. So again, it's nice, but then again, if you have a small enough tab, is it going to hold with the grain? What kind of grain? What kind of wood do you use? You can ask all those questions. But for me, I'm giving you guys what I do 95% of the time when I tab. This is exactly what we're doing right now. I am putting them in convenient spots. I am putting them so they line up with the grain. 4 is all that I need for this. And I've got a 3D tab that's 0.4 and 0.24. So notice here we've got edit passes. So how deep are we going to go with our passes? I've got a 0.26, a 0.52, 0.78. So that means each depth is 0.26 deep. So think about this. If we're going to use a 1/4 inch cutter, going a 1/4 inch deep, yeah, that's fine. We can do that. So another thing, I'm going to hit calculate. Just for grins, I want to see how long this toolpath is going to take. So it says it's going to take 1 minute and 42 seconds to do all this. So that's a pretty quick cut. The groove is not taking very long, and 1:16. So it's really not a long file. And I'm going to do one worse and even slow it down a little bit more, because I want to come in and add a ramp. And I want you to see what a ramp is. And ramps are really nice to use on hardwood, and certain bits need to be ramped in. So what exactly is a ramp? So a ramp versus coming here, and let me just, I'll do a mock-up with it on the camera. I will do a mock-up on the camera for you to see. So a ramp would be a toolpath with no ramp. This bit would go all the way to its 0.26 deep, and then cut around. Go another 0.26, cut all the way around, straight back down, it's final, go all the way around. With a ramp, it starts here, it goes down at a diagonal to 0.26, then makes its way around, goes down at a diagonal again, and makes its way around. So you can add these ramps to your toolpath. It's less wear and tear on your bits, and especially when you get into using harder bits, it's something that's, really pretty necessary. So I'm going to add a ramp. And here's a spiral. And the spiral one's really nice. If you had a hole right here that you had to drill, it would just spiral all the way around that hole. And it would spiral all the way around this as well, but we don't need it to do that. So I'll just give it a smooth. So within 4 inches, it'll nicely plunge down. So if I do that and I hit calculate, notice now my time just went up. So now I'm taking a little bit longer time. So I'm taking a little bit of time, but I'm also saving a little bit of life. If I was just doing this out of MDF or plywood, I wouldn't be worried about the ramps. But I'm going to add that ramp in there since I'm going to be doing it out of a harder piece of wood. So any questions here? I'm going to go back and just double check. When I get talking, I'm not always watching. I'm going to slow this down just a little bit, just for the sake of we're not production cutting this. We just want to watch it cut on the screen. So reset, I'm going to preview all toolpaths. I got a groove that cut first. I've got a profile toolpath with 4 tabs. I can look at the back side. I see my tabs. Check, check. I can zoom in, verify the tabs are how I want them to be. I can see that it's a 3D. It ramps up, ramps down. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm going to probably go cut it and see what it does. So what I need to memorize here is what bits did I have. So I had an 1/8 inch, or I'm sorry, I have a V bit, 90, check. And then I will go and use a 1/4 inch upcut. So okay, check. So that's good to know. Oops. So I want to save this. So remember, when we have this nice drawing file and we click Save over here, we've saved the drawing file. And I go to the ShopBot, it's not going to register that file. Even though the toolpaths are in here, it still needs to get converted from a .crv to a .svp. So to save these, I actually go down here, bottom row, third one over, Save Toolpath. And right here it says no visible toolpaths. So I click that one and I click that one. And there's my 2 toolpaths. And it doesn't matter what order you click them. It matters on what order they are up here, because that's the order they're going to cut in. It's going to do profile groove 1/8 inch with a V-bit, and then it's going to do a profile outer with a 1/4 inch upcut. I make sure it goes to a ShopBot TC. That TC stands for tool change. So that means this processor will prompt me when bit 7 is done cutting and say, hey buddy, where's bit 1? You need to put bit 1 in, finish up. I will say, okay, I just did that, I re-zeroed it, and then I hit okay, and now it runs the second profile outer. So let's save it and do this, and then we'll come back if you got any questions. So here's cutting board. Here's where my other ones are. This was called the, this was my training cutting board. Notice that one in there is a .crv. I got the same name. It's going to save it as a .sbp. So right there you see it's a .sbp. So now I'll have two files in there. I'll actually have the drawing file and the SBP file. All right. And make sure they confirm that they were in there too. So training, cutting board, toolpath, training, cutting board, drawing file. So there's the two files. So you're always going to have two files for every file. All right, so here's the basic machine, and I need to get my material attached, and I need to get my correct bit in there. So I guess for this, I'm going to step away from the computer for a sec and go do this stuff. So let me first bring up the keypad. And the first bit I said I was going to be using was a V-bit. So let's show you a bit change. So I got a spindle on mine, and remember, a spindle is a little bit different than a Porter cable, where you're actually going to pull this collet out, and then you're going to pull the collet apart. So when I squeeze these two together, I've loosened this up. I pull this out by hand, and I'll actually pull my bit out. Then I'll take this collet and collet nut for any spindle and remove the two from each other. Shake out the sawdust. Knock out the sawdust. Blow it out if you got a blower, because these fill up with sawdust. And check for the spring. Make sure it's springing in there. If the spring's holding it, it won't fall out. If the spring won't hold that collet in there and just falls out, it's time to get a new collet. So the collet nut isn't per se going to go bad, but you should check it once in a while to see if there's anything in there that could have been chipped or broke. It's that spring collet sometimes that will lose its spring. So take these and spring them together. Same with installing a bit too. We don't want to force that bit all the way up into the shaft, so then it'll hit here and it could actually come loose. You actually just want to get that up there about 3/4 of the way through the shaft, or just about to where the cutting threads are. Get this going on your spindle. And notice this when I go to tighten this thing. I'm just taking my 2 wrenches here, and you see me, I'm just going tight and then just giving it a little bit more. I'm not trying to prove to the machine how strong I am, because I don't want to over-tighten that spring collet and lose the spring. So since I changed bits, I no longer have the correct zero height. So at this point, I will need to redo my zero axes. Nothing's changed with the X and the Y. Those are fine. But the zero height, I got to change. Okay. And this famous screen right here, zeroed, it's so easy for you to hit OK before you even actually do this. And we actually get a lot of calls where people are like, can I buy those alligator clips? Because they've left it on there. So, okay. And at this point, I am again going to bring up the keypad. I'm going to move to a safe Z height. And for me right now, I'm just going to hit number 2 because that's my saved location. And it's going to take it back out of the way, so now I can fasten my board down. So this one being maple, I'm going to have to pre-drill it. I'm going to line my board up with my 0 and my 0, and my X and my Y. And I know that I've left enough material in the corners to run some screws. So I'm going to pre-drill these. If you have a board, though, that's really close in a corner, if your part is, you're going to want to check this in the software. I verified this earlier, so I'm not concerned about it, but you know, make sure it's something that you do check before you run your screws, because you don't want to take and crash that bit into the screw. That's never fun to explain that one. So I pre-drilled these, like I said, being that it's maple. I'm just going to snug this down with the 4 screws. And screws, you know, they're an easy way to take things on and off. So that one, well, notice this one went right through. So I must have drilled that above one of my holes already. So that one I'm actually going to re-drill. That's where it's nice to have two drill bits. And it's nice to know where you can and can't drill. So that one, there was something underneath there that was already drilled out. All right, so my board's held. I know I'm at a safe Z height. I got the right bit in there. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask for that bit and say, is that bit in place? I will say yes and start running it. Everything's been zeroed. The machine is in its location. I'll leave the guard and the shroud off here so you can actually see the cut. And we'll run it. So again, I'm going to stay in easy mode. Easy is nice. I'm not really messing around with much. So I'll just go to cut part. And I just got to go find my part, which was on the desktop. And it was called cutting board. And this one was training cutting board. And I hit start. It's going to ask me, is tool 7 in spindle? This is where you have that ShopBot TC. I think this is answering Kern's question too. So it's going to prompt me, is bit number 7 in there? And I've already done that because I like to be ahead of the game. I like to double check and triple check myself. So yes, that part is in there and we're good. So yes. Is Z zeroed? Yes. So this next thing is going to say click OK. So right now, if you have the spindle unit, see my hand over here in the right corner? I'm going to go underneath here and flip and make sure that this spindle is, the VFD is turned on. And if you have a router, you want to make sure that's in the on position as well. From there, go ahead and click OK. The machine's going to start moving. I'm at a Z height, the safe Z height of 0.9. Locate 0. And there it is doing the groove. So as soon as it gets done running, what it asks is, yeah, the safe Z height can be changed, Gary, and I actually don't like how close this Z height is on this one. That is, you know, I got a 0.75 material, and my safe Z height is 0.96. That's 0.2. So remind me, as soon as we get done cutting, let's go in and change that Z height to a better number. So is tool number 1 in spindle? Well, no, it's not, because we just used tool 7. So I would hit no. Do you want to use keypad to move to a height to change the bit? Yes. So now I got my keypad back up. I'll do page up. And since I zeroed to the table, I'm going to have to move over here off to the side of my machine. What's wrong with over there right now? I got a bunch of sawdust laying on it. So, you know, if you got a little blowgun or something for air, it's nice to blow it out. So I will loosen this up. Again, I'm going to pull this all the way off. I'm going to pull my spindle off, my collet, double check it, spring it back together, make sure I got the right size diameter, the right bit. Do I got enough cutting depth to get through this material? That's all stuff you got to verify on your bits. I'll get this one cutting, and then I'll grab the camera and we'll actually do a little bit more close-ups. Hopefully this newer camera's got a little bit better resolution. So right now I got a bunch of sawdust. If I had that underneath there, it would throw that off. So blow that stuff out of the way. Get the Z0 plate in place. And I hit escape, and it says change bit to number 1, and then hit enter when you're ready to 0. All right, I already did that. Like I said, I like to stay ahead of the game. I know what's coming. And then it even asks you once more, just to be safe, do you want to use a keyboard to move to a specific spot? Nope, I'm good. I already did that. So I hit OK. And I'm good. It's nice to have that backup in there. I'd rather have it than not have it, just to confirm. All right. And again, try to get in the habit of actually pulling this off before you hit that OK button. Another thing I like to do right now is I know my safe Z height is kind of low, and I'm already at 0.5, and it's going to try to go on a crow's fly. When I say crow's fly, it's going to try to shoot over there quick. So let's see if it does it. All right, I stopped it just in time. So what it did right there, bring up the thing. Look what it did. It's at 0.617. And I only did this because I know we're way over here. We'll be okay. But what it did was it lifted it up to that 0.5 safe Z height, and it didn't have enough time to pick up. It's only at 0.617 before it hit the 0.75 thick material. So right in here, I've hit the board with a bit. I am actually in the material right now. So this isn't good. If that would have kept running, that could have wrecked my it could have wrecked my board. So what I could have done though was over here, when I had the keypad open, when it said move to a safe height, is what, oop, now we're in trouble. What I could have done here was actually had it over here and brought it up to that safe Z height. So this is good. We got a lot going on right now. This is actually this is a good teaching example here. I wish I could say I did it all on purpose, but I didn't. So what has happened now is you saw me when I was pulling out of the material with the keypad, the machine kind of jerked and made a noise. Cock, cock, cock. So what it did was it lost position. So, uh-oh, I'm in the middle of a cut. I've got this board already glued down or screwed down, and I got to find my 0, again and get it so I can actually cut the groove or I can cut the profile out all the way around this in the right direction and the right distance. So right now the position could be off a little. I know I crashed this, so I need to re-zero it and then rerun it. So let's just do this one step at a time. First things first, I know my Z is up safely, and I'm going to do an X and a Y 0. So I'm going to find that 0, now, have it go over and re-find the 0. All right, good. By using the proc switches, I've now found 0, and the center of that bit is over the center of that corner of that material, which is where I had originally drawn it and designed it. I haven't taken my screws out, so nothing's changed, so I'm still in good shape. However, what's one thing we're going to run into right now? If I went cut part, what's it going to do? It's going to start me out using the V cutter. It's going to want to do that groove again. But I've already got the groove. I've already got the 1/4" bit in place. So there's a couple ways of handling this one right now. One would be you could go back into your Partworks, and you can go into your Partworks, unclick Profile Groove, have just the profile outer, hit save, and we'll just call this profile outer for training. And I'm going to run this one, and then I'll show you the other option. But I want to run this one just to be safe. Profile outer training. So I'll hit save, and there's profile outer training. Hit close. Okay, back in my ShopBot software, I will go cut part, and it should say profile outer training. So that's the way I'm going to run this one right now, because that one's simple and I know it's going to work, and that took me no effort. What we also could have done was this. We also could have done preview part, do a preview part, do training, what was the one, training cutting board, open that up. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do preview. I would have done, actually, I would have had to have gone into, see, this would get us out of ShopBot easy. We would have had to switch to full, and I would have went file, part file, edit, training cutting board, and this is where I actually go in and read the code and say, all right, right now I'm going down, I'm using tool 7, and I'm going to make my profile cut. Then it says, all right, switch to tool 1, and then make this cut. And this is where I could have said, okay, it looks like tool number 1 is line 109. So I'd actually find line like just right before there where it prompts me. I'd say, okay, there's line 106. So knowing that line is 106, what I can do is I can come here and go File, go to Line, Training Cutting Board. There's your training cutting board, and then I could hit Start and then give it go to line 109, and then click Go and run from here, and actually run it from there. So you've got options. This way works great. Again, I'm one of those kind of guys where I know I just went into Partworks. It took me a whole 10 seconds. I just resaved it as just profile. So now when I come back into my ShopBot 3, I can just go File, Part File, Load. I want Profile Outer Training. Hit OK, hit Start, and then hit OK. And I'm actually going to pause this and quit, because if I got to go back into easy mode for you to see the camera. So what I did too was I just hit pause and quit, which is a way to get out of your file. You can always hit pause and just hit spacebar, I'm sorry, and pause it, or you can hit quit. So I hit quit and I just restarted it. Kern, I'm reading yours while I'm looking for this here. I don't know what, if you had an older machine, I know some of them were clipped different, so if yours is working, it's fine. So I'm going to hit Start, and actually let's go back in, let's go cancel once more, and let's go back in and change our safe 0 heights before we do this, because that was just something that we know we had wanted to do. So let's do it right now while we're thinking about it. And we're not doing it in there. So one, I would go here into Partworks, and there's 2 ways of doing this. One is you got to safe 0 clearance, and I'm going to give it 1 inch above. It's going to say OK, recalculate. So right there it shows it's actually at 1.761, so it's way up there now. So recalculate, and I'm just going to resave that, is profile outer training, which is what we wanted. Replace it, yes. And the other place to check for safe zero height is in full mode. It would be settings, and somebody can pipe in. I forget where this is so much. DC, here's your safe pull-up, which is 1/2 of an inch. So this one's going to pull it up 1/2 of an inch above above when it does your Z0. And so when you do it like a Z0, it's going to pull it up to that 1/2 inch. And then as soon as you part file load, now this software gets overridden by the part work software and will now go to that 1-inch safe Z pull. I know that's a mouthful what we just did, and we can gladly come back and do it, but I'm itching to cut this. So let's get this thing cut, and then we'll go back. So cut part, profile outer training, start, turn spindle on. Goes to my new safe Z height, goes down. Now it's ramping down right before it makes its cut. See how I was safe from the screws? And notice I don't have my dust collector on, so it's not sucking the dust up very well. So this is where you'd want the dust collector on, but again, we can't see that. So I'm going to run my vacuum around while this thing's cutting. So there's second pass being wrapped in. And notice too that I'm staying away from that groove. Everything's lined back up. Even though we trashed it, we had reset it. You want to have a dust collection because you don't want to be wearing out your bit. Now watch, it'll ramp down one last time over here. There goes that Z lower. There's your tab. Watch, it'll come over here and lift up for a tab. There's your tab. There's the third tab. So there we go. I just cut out the profile. I hope it wasn't too loud for everybody. So K2, there it goes out of the way. Look at my height, my Z height, 1.761. That's an inch above. You can't quite see it in the video. So I'm in a nice safe height there. I don't like that 0.2 stuff. I do if I'm production cutting, if I'm trying to cut that file as fast as I can. But for this, there's no sense. So it looks good. A couple things I want to point out here. One would be to check your chip load. Look at that sawdust. I don't know how well you can see that. But see that chip load? A lot of people are thinking when they cut, their machine should be cutting and having fine sanding dust, like you'd see off like a random orbital router. That's not actually what you want for sawdust. You want the sawdust that I just put up in front of the, it's almost like a shaving. That's the ideal sawdust. Good feed and a good speed. You're not burning up the bit by cutting too fast. So a lot of people think, just the faster you go, the better it'll be. It's really kind of the opposite. I'm going to vacuum this group. I want to make sure I can see MD. And see MDF where I just cut. So that means I got the right depth. If for some reason, and all you see is maple, you don't really through, that's where it's nice before you unbolt anything to just go back to Partworks real quick, change your cut depth, and then from there rerun the file. Harm, no foul. So that's where it's nice to have, your and so but we verified it. We know we're Alright. Is this better? Give me a sec to try a new battery. Is my new battery new or used? Man, I'm sorry, guys. I'll tell you what, I'm getting all on this whole technology bandwagon, and I got a new camera, which I seem to have figured out. It looks better as far as the webcam, and I bought this new wireless mic, and I just used the 9-volt batteries that it came with, and apparently they cut out, so I hope Gary doesn't want his remote controller back, because I just took the 9-volt out of that. Where did I lose you with volume? Anything I can repeat? We got another half hour still, so we can keep going for 30 minutes. And sorry there, it kind of was a bad way to end things with losing the volume. So just to reinstate, I don't know where it went out if anybody pipes in, but you know, just saying, test your edge here. This has got the smooth edge, and this has got a rough edge. You know, you cut right. If you feel this and it has a smoother edge than your finished part, you're going to want to go back into PartWorks and just change the direction of the cut. So, and that would be simply going in here going, okay, my profile, it's smoother on the bad piece than the good piece, so just switch it over here from climb to convention, and then you'd hit calculate and go. So that's what I was explaining when the thing went out. So, all right, so I guess time went quick. I was planning on cutting a few things out, but I'll get talking here, and I mean, we added a few things to this that I wasn't planning on with the crash and reloading and stuff. But really, just to recap, and then we'll have an open discussion here for about a half hour, is you know, trying to get into doing these trainings where we can use the ShopBot and the camera all in one. And so this one here, like I said, we started out, we just went on to Google. I'm sorry, we went to the ShopBot tools, and we found ready-to-cut projects. We went in and modified it, shopbottools.com. We went in, ready-to-go projects. We went in, we downloaded the file, we brought it in, PartWorks. You know, we modified it to the material size that we had. We went and changed it to our material size. And then we grabbed the state that we wanted. We added a V-groove. So we came over here and toolpathed it with a V-groove. We played around with this profile, with the 2D using the solid color here, so you could actually see where your bit is going to and not going to get. And like we did with the North Carolina thing, we went in and we went to node editing and changed stuff around so we could make it fit better. We toolpathed it, made sure that it you know, calculated out, it looked right, added some tabs, we added a bit, so we covered quite a bit. This wasn't, I covered a lot more than I thought, so I hope everybody got what they needed out of this. Again, all these trainings are recorded and posted for future, you know, future viewing, and as always, send me any suggestions that you have. It's, you just call in or just go to tjchristiansen@shopbottools.com, and that would be a way to get a hold of me. So let me pause for 1 sec. I'm going to stop this recording, and then we'll continue on with the Q&A portion. Close. Oh, my computer froze. That means I'll lose the whole thing.
Oh, really?